Time for another Echo Project game. This is another work in progress in this case, like most visual novels these days tend to be. But this is a role to play, and I figured this was... Oh. Sorry, I moved my mouse and realized that my mouse was determining the camera pan. Hello. Nope. And also the mouse can leave the screen, so I gotta be careful here. Anyway, this is, if I remember correctly, written by McSkinney, who is the person who wrote the Jenna and Flynn routes of... Oh, the time of day is changing. Of Echo, which I'm playing right now, so I figured doing this Let's Try while the Jenna route is still in progress felt timely, so I figured I would do it now. Even if it means breaking my furry streak that I've been maintaining since, like, September, where every single Let's Try has been a furry game, whether I call it out or not. I was kind of just, at one point I was just kind of seeing whether or not people would even notice how consistent it was.
Good morning, everyone. This is Garth Donovan here with Mesa Verde's #1 music station, K102, classic rock sounds of the 60s and 70s. Today's forecast calls for clear skies throughout the day, highs in the mid-80s, lows in the mid-60s, and a chance of light showers in the evening. Today's announcements. After being closed for nearly a full year, the Roger B. Wayans Municipal Library will be reopening today following renovations sponsored by the Mesa Verde Historical Society. A charity dinner will be held in honor of the late Mr. Wayne at the Tomahawk Community Centre on Main Street. The Mesa Verde Chamber of Commerce is anticipating the rise in local tourism for this season's Red Yucca Arts Festival. In addition to the Art in the Park and County Fair events, the travelling wrestling promotion Sunday Funday Fights will be setting up every Friday at the Copperfield Canyon Park.
I wasn't ready for the voice acting nor the kinetic text, but Mesa Verde immediately has me thinking of Better Call Saul.
Just off 7th Street. Tickets and information are available on the Chamber's website and the K102 social media page. Finally, the Mesa Verde Historical Society, in association with the Honeywell Mining Conglomerate, will be starting its mine tour this Thursday.
Oh look, it's a Red Flags bar.
Which will take visitors to levels A to D of the famous Mesa Verde mine. Travelling tours will also be available every Friday through Sunday, where guests will be shuttled across town to various local historical sites. The Historical Society recommends visitors bring closed-toed shoes, sunscreen, and a sense of adventure. Again, this is Garth Donovan, hoping you have a very pleasant day.
We had some backgrounds to fly through there. Okay. Look at that transition from time of day. You can kind of see the reflection of the calendar in the computer screen, I think. This person has a really decorated, like, this is a... They have vibes going on with their house here. I've never really had my own, like, more permanent space, so I've never, like, actually, like, had time to think about this, like, what kind of, like, more permanent fixtures do I want? Like, really, really specific, painting that looks like a witness screenshot, almost. Is that a water reflection in the middle of it? Or is it just actually a giant, like, donut hole open, archway on the right there? Anyway. Ugh. What time is it? I roll over, clutching at air for a few seconds before my fingertips finally touch my phone. I squint at the LED screen, waiting for my eyes to adjust to the light. Ordinarily, I keep my curtains closed, but I left them open to try and make it easier to get up in the morning. It's not really helping. Finally, the bright squiggles on the screen come into focus. 11:30 a.m. Danny? Danny, are you up yet? Yeah. Yes. Okay, hurry up and shower, alright? Oh, this is a childhood. This is a childhood room. Never mind. It's not in the space in the part of life I thought. We gotta get to your thing at 12. So let me know if you need any help. No, don't wake up in a half an hour before you need to arrive at your destination. No stress. I stretched myself out over the top of my comforter, feeling the shifting weight of the air mattress beneath me like pin pricks up my spine. It's always the worst in the morning. I grit my teeth, trying not to sound too in pain as I respond back. Yeah, I'll double time it. No worries. Gotcha. I'll be downstairs getting the truck ready. I can hear Dad start to move away from the door, but he stops after a few steps. I'll warm up the hot water bottle so you can sit on it on the way there, okay? The hot water bottle. I blink. It's 5 minutes away, I'll be fine. Well, okay then. I finally hear his footsteps trail off back down the stairs. Setting my phone back down on the edge of the bed, I grasp the sheets and slowly try to sit upright. I think we are getting narrative context about maybe a disability. Because there's specifically something that's always the worst in the morning, and then there's special accommodations, which means they actually might be older than I thought they were too. This is very funny to me because I've mentioned that the exact ideas I had in mind, like I played Carl's Route of Echo and immediately had a bunch of ideas that I wanted to expand upon in a story that I was daydreaming about writing, and over the course of playing the later routes, the exact ideas I had kept coming up. I'm like, what was I just like in tune with where this was going, and I was predicting it with my own ideas, and then that was just like, I don't know, like it wasn't foreshadowed necessarily, but it kept coming up later, and I'm like, how did this exact idea come up in here? No. And now I'm like, oh shit. My my wheelchair bound werewolf character. I don't think there's gonna be a werewolf character, but the exact premise that not the exact, I'm going way too heavy on it, but I just like the fact that with the existing kind of joking reference to the idea that my ideas keep coming up, having the other visual novel also then potentially open on the less than direct reveal of a disabled protagonist would be a very funny coincidence to then have come up immediately afterwards. That same pinching sensation from earlier is only amplified when I try to move, only ever really subsiding when I lie absolutely still. Using my arms to push myself up rather than the muscles in my back usually helps a little. My pills for this are in the bathroom. I really should just move them to my bedside for convenience's sake. Maybe I'll take some extra so I'll be fine to hang out in public for a bit. I haven't talked to anyone besides Dad in a while. God, I hope it'll be fine. It definitely sounds like they might have a pain disorder or something. A dungeon master. Your footsteps echo upon the checkered marble floor, amber light flickering along the polished surface from the many torches hung along the corridor. One every 15 feet. Attack them for chicken. There's a window on your left, though all that emanates from it is the blackness of a moonless light. Wait. No, I imagined the word "the." It just felt right. The blackness of a moonless night. Or, well, a moonless morning. You've awoken a few hours past twilight with word of new orders from your superiors. You groggily sling your standard patrol kit on, likely pondering what could be of such rousing concern at this time of night. After all, the castle has plenty of guardsmen to cover the night shift. Per word of the captain, all you know is to be armed and ready for outdoor travel. It feels like an hour passes, the night lingering slightly into the violet hues of a pre-dawn sky. You gaze upon your own reflection, cast in one of the many ornate mirrors that line the castle's halls. You are met with the visage of a man fully clad in plate, eyes shadowed and face fully covered, a fruity little scarf around your collar. Fruity? The fruitiest. All the other guards talk smack about you behind your back. About it, naturally, but you endure it for the fashion statement alone. The one item I add to my template character and I'm gonna get shredded for it. Nice. Hey, keep it in character, buddy. Oh, keep it IC, buddy. IC? In character. Oh. You have yet to see anyone pass you by in the time you've been out here in the hall. In the wake of the king's passing last month, an unusual solace has fallen over the prestigious keep. The interior, once filled with all manner of merriment and expansionary planning, has been rather suddenly muted. The corridors he once loitered about with his expansive family are also always empty, as if out of respect for the larger-than-life soul that once filled them. Now, you can faintly hear an authoritative voices coming from beyond the hardwood door at the end. I'm choking here today. There's a heightened voice that is audible, even at this distance. You can make out the words, all necessary preparations, and ensured safety. If you got closer, maybe you can make out more of what they are saying. Do you dare? You dare. An interesting choice. Why is that? Oop. By the time you reach the door, all the speaking voices have ceased. Like maybe hearing your 50 pounds of armor and gear clanging about as you move may have disturbed them. Book it. The voices within the room pick up once more. Right, well, I have made arrangements for... You hurry your metal behind... You murray your metal behind away from the door, clearly having interrupted the meeting yet again. The acoustics in here are amplified all to hell. The sound is deafening. Honestly, it's a great natural security system. You could hear a pebble drop in this place. You near the end of the corridor and hear a deep, accented voice call forth. Guardsmen, where are you running off to? You pivot on heel, and are met with the sight of your superior officer, Guard Captain Saud Antos, hustling himself over to your position. It looks like he shut the meeting room door behind him, so you cannot see who he was speaking to. With the helmets and such, it's a bit difficult to tell who everyone is. You should announce yourself, at the very least. What's your name again? Hardsy, Garth, or Manny? Question mark? Do you not know? Did you never check? Manny? Manny. Guardsman Manny, of course. I should have recognized you by your demeanor. Always hustling and bustling about. You must have quite the runner's physique under there. What were you before, a courier? Ah, it's no matter. You have things to see and people to do. What? As they say, yes? What is this? Getting called up by Flynn here. You're also looking well rested despite the circumstances. His tone is eloquent and friendly, though there is an edge of hurriedness to it, quite unusual for his normally lackadaisical demeanor. Which is good, because I have a special assignment for you. Apologies for the lack of prior notice, but things have been a bit hustle and bustle lately, yes? The two of you stare into each other's helmeted visages. This part of the castle is dead silent. He eventually gesticulates, swirling his gauntleted hand in a circular motion. Low-key busy, as they say, as is extremely period-appropriate dialogue. There's a special invitation that I would like you to... It's quite lit. It's quite all right, good captain. I can take it from here and brief the guardsmen myself. I apologize for my tardiness. Matters of the court have been exceptionally trying today, and I decided a moonlight ride with my saddler was in order. It is so beautiful out there, after all. Captain's posture stiffens before he quickly bows his helmeted noggin. Aha, your Royal Highness. Of course, of course. You there. The guardsman up with the captain. How are you this morning? So, does Manny say anything? Oh, yeah, one sec. Majesty? Ma'am? It's good to see you. I'm doing... You try to think of a suitably appropriate word to say. Mary. My ultimate weakness in D&D on any element is just trying to... Suddenly... Like, I can quip, I can have fun, I can screw around on a stream or whatever, but suddenly the moment I have to, like, think of dialogue that's in character on the fly, suddenly I am just awful. I just freeze. There's a pause. Mary? My cousin Mary? Guardsman? No, no, Mary as in, happy, mirthful. I am full of mirth to be in your gracious presence, Madam Majesty. Bye. Oh, it's auto-proceeding. The guard captain looks suddenly very interested in that torch by the wall, the one away from this conversation. However, she merely giggles, finding the effort endearing nonetheless. The person who's talking changing threw me off. You're funny, Guardsman Manny. I'm excited to be riding out with you today. And please, addressing me by my title alone is fine. I find that it saves time, especially with those that I will be working alongside. Thank you, Princess. So, what is our mission? A royal escort, of course. She beams, folding her hands behind her riding dress and looking up at the mysterious guardsman before her. Mysterious? I am actually rather capable on my own, being a practicer of martial arts myself, but I do so enjoy the company. My father has instructed me to pay a visit to one of our wealthier families that lives outside of town, about a 3 hours ride from the gates. It's to be a diplomatic affair. The family in question, the Bartistes, own several silver mines along the coast, including some outside our territory. I won't get too much into the boring political details, that being for me to worry about, but recent imposed tariffs upon ore imported into the kingdom have been extravagant. The Bartistes have been vocally opposed to the tariff, and we wish to formally back them. Huh. With the secretive meeting going on in the middle of the night, I'd expected something a little more high stakes for the quest. Understood, Princess. I will be happy to accompany you and, provide my blade shall peril arise. Wonderful. I will be joining you as well, per the new king's orders. We will be taking the back roads through town, avoiding major thoroughfares. This is, of course, for security considerations. Also, it helps prevent confusion. We wouldn't want the peasantry thinking there is some sort of royal parade afoot. I'm not remotely presentable enough for such an affair. My cape is still being cleaned from last month's sortie. That's a long cleaning. What happened? How many people died on it? He chuckles politely, though Guardsman Manny may be able to detect a tinge of nervousness in the captain's laugh. Oh, he ate shit. Understood? Yes, that's a fair precaution. Saud claps his hands, nodding. Excellent. Well then, let's be off. The sun shall be rising shortly. Sounds good, sir. Indeed. Duke? Yeah, one sec. Trying to find the background and a map for the next part. Duke rummages through his folder of materials for a minute before giving up. Finally giving up, whipping out a tablet from his backpack. He's just gonna draw it live. Let's go. Fantasy medieval town. Look at him go. So they're doing this live. Filter applied. That's all it takes. That's how all of Echo's assets were made, except for all the ones that were, you know, painted. You put a painter effect on it, or you put on there's like a cutout. There's a few other ones. He taps at it, then sets it in the center of the table. And then it slightly grew. Valton by the Sea, capital city of the Petty Kingdom, contains approximately 30,000 people. Originally a fishing town, Valton diversified into a smithing hub as vocational institutions and craftsman guilds were established. Carts of ore can be seen coming en masse, shipping from across the region to be crafted into all manner of finished products. However, being rather perceptive of your surroundings, and also being a native to the location, you may notice something is a little off. Outside the usual burgeoning industry traffic, things seem strangely quiet. There's usually quite a bit more people around, even at this early hour. The guard captain leads you to down an alley, with one of the minor side gates of the surrounding city walls now in sight, just past a couple buildings. A watchman runs past a nearby intersection, though he comes to a quick halt as he sees you. He spins on his heels, then double times it in your direction. It takes him just a moment to reach the guard captain. He's speaking with some urgency, though what exactly he's saying is unclear, his voice hushed. The two converse for less than a minute, glancing towards the princess once or twice, before the watchman takes off again in the direction of the town square. Guard captain, what seems to be the issue? Why is everything so quiet? I miss D&D. I'm just thinking about that. I'm also having a slight... My fucking wheelchair werewolf story was also a D&D story about a queer group, but it's just like... I should really write anything ever. Because I need another hobby, right? I need more hobbies, that's what I need. But also, I definitely miss D&D. Our D&D group died as a direct consequence of COVID starting. And so that's why that series just kind of ended one day. And we just never quite got back to it. And now I don't know where the fuck I would put that in my life. But I want to... How do I get like a special... I need a version of reality where I get twice as much week every week as everyone else gets, so that I can keep up with all the shit that I want to do. Captain Antos regards the two before him, thinking. It appears there is a little bit of disturbance downtown. You know, angry peasantry and the like. Oh, that's terrible. What's gotten everyone so upset? Perhaps we can take a little detour and help. Right, Guardsman Manny? Before you can weigh in your opinion, Captain Antos interjects. Oh, no, goodness no. What you are doing is far more imperative than this. Common squabbles. You know how it goes, yes? My father's treasury exists to pay the watchmen for situations just such as this. Though, we should probably avoid the warehouse district and stick along the wall edge near the bellows. The armored man flicks his reins, heading off. The princess makes a show of being rather visibly offended at the guard's captain's dodging of her question, before following after him in a strong canter, nearly a gallop. She has known these cobblestone streets since she was a little girl, so veering through the various alleyways and thoroughfares comes naturally to her. And thus she quickly catches up to Captain Antos. Right. With Guardsman Manny bringing up the rear. Is he rushing to catch up, or taking a more measured pace? Oh, right. Ah. This is the... the quirk, I think the quirk here of showing the dialogue as having a character attached to it, even when they're not speaking, as opposed to the other visual novels we've played lately, is because the person who is playing the princess character at the D&D table, which we have not met yet, but is implied to exist, is speaking these parts. So the dungeon master is doing this narration, and then she is doing this narration, and so, like, this would be in-universe, by which I mean the D&D universe, not the tabletop people sitting at a table universe, and not the fantasy universe. This narration would be spoken with the same voice as the characters speaking in. Well, the same human voice, not necessarily the same performed voice. I have to specify so much about everything I'm saying right here because of the layers happening. But the person sitting at the table is saying this part, and that's why it says that it's princess attached narration, because it's them talking about their role playing. This is her role playing of her character, so she's filling in backstory and saying what her reaction is, and then this becomes the dungeon master's narration, where they're prompting what I'm going to be doing, because I am the newbie at the table and need to be prompted by the DM more, while other people are more expressive and so on. These are actually pretty accurate dynamics of how a lot of this stuff works at a table. It's like, she's known these cobblestones since she was a little girl, so veering through the various alleyways and thoroughfares comes naturally to her. And thus she quickly catches up to Captain Antos. Right, with Guardsman Manny bringing up the rear. So I guess Antos is probably also another person that's not played by the DM. Is he rushing to catch up, or taking a more measured pace? Trying to catch up. I'm going to be a total first day train wreck nerd. Which is easy to roleplay because it's seemingly what is happening at the table. The captain and the princess are rather adept equestrians, so it takes a little more focus for Manny to keep up. However, keep up he does indeed. This could be a pretty immersive visual novel reading if I had like a squad or like a separate human to actually play every single voice, because then you'd actually hear the narrations changing constantly. It's very difficult for me to actually try to pull that off myself at all, and it'd be hard to even do with Stephanie at that point. However, keep up he does indeed. Your surroundings are a blur, ducking from one side street to another, hoof steps echoing through the empty streets. You're entering the smithing district now, and plastered upon various walls, doors, and windows are an assortment of the same strange-looking flyers. With how fast you're going, you're unable to discern what's upon them. Some sort of drawings? An admonishment? It's unclear. What is clear is the sight of Captain Antos's horse coming to a sudden, abrupt halt in front of you. The captain, however, does not stop. He goes flying over the head of his mount, somersaulting and landing on the flat of his back in the courtyard in front of you. You look for the source of his sudden dismounting. It doesn't take long to find it. A dock rope that was stretched taut across the exit of the alley you've been traveling through. Ugh. Ugh. The helmeted man hobbles up to his knees, recovering from the stunning whiplash, his horse still whinnying in surprise behind him. Owl guards! Owl guards! Someone shouts. And that one! She looks awful ritzy. Get the one on the ground. You're getting taken out by bandits. A cacophony of angry voices fill the courtyard, your party having run into the midst of what looks like some sort of riotous staging area. Very different implication. Although riots can be righteous. Anyway, doors lie on the streets, torn off their hinges. Windows are broken and the cheap, green glass scattered all across the street, making it sparkle like glitter. A man in a dress shirt and silken black pants lays face down in the doorway of one of the blacksmith shops. Rivulets of blood cascade down the steps. Oh, to have the adjective prowess of a dungeon master. But from this distance, you can just barely make out a few plumes of smoke rising from newly created blazes, incendiaries running amok. More presently, however, is the threat of the 6 enclosing rioters. They may be in plain clothes, but they are armed with freshly forged swords. And judging from the noise past the courtyard, there's more just around the corner. Captain Antos glances back just as one of the younger-looking men in the crowd braves a swing at him, it smacking against his armor with a painful thud, but not penetrating it. Ugh! Maddie, get her to safety. Go back. Go back. He gestures wildly back in the direction we came, rolling out of the way of the second blow. No, I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna disobey orders. Captain, we're not leaving you. Hold on. What? No, get out of here. Another strike comes crashing down on the side of his chest plate. At least 3 of the attackers are around the kneeling captain now. I push myself off my horse and draw my blade. It's my narration now. And it looks like the princess ain't too far behind. Honestly, dragging royalty into the middle of a back alley fight with a ton of rioters sounds as dumb can be, but I can't just leave the captain here. Anyway, isn't the true nature of heroism successful idiocy? I don't really do much strategic planning as I charge in, shield in front of me as I bash it against the latest attacker. They go down hard, stunned against the curb. Behind me, a flurry of magic zips by, striking the captain? It takes me a second to realize that the spell the princess used is a beneficial one, a protection spell buffing up his already rather strong armor. Get the royal! The 3 other attackers, not around Captain Antos, begin to rush towards the princess. One getting past, sword aimed to stab directly at her. She tries to dodge out of the way, but it's not quite enough, and she still ends up getting bodied by the rushing assailant. Nothing pierced, but still enough to smack her back against her horse, which whinnies and rises up 2 legs in protest. Princess! Don't worry, boys, I'll handle him. The alleyway entrance is only wide enough for about 2 people to fit, side by side. Noting this, I step back, taking glancing blows from the attackers in front of me, and blocking the rest of it with my shield. It's not enough to stagger me or knock me down. So far, so good. So far, so good. Timing was bad enough. I'm a wreck. The captain, now finally on his feet, sees what I'm doing and shifts back into place beside me. From there, we hold the line. With defensive posturing, we can hold the stacking crowd quite well. And, to her word, the princess is holding her own against the sword-wielding rioter behind us. She's casting repeated slowing spells on him to the point where he's become incapacitated. Using some rope from her saddlebag, she manages to detain him non-lethally. Which is certainly not what we're doing. The captain and I jab our swords through our makeshift shield wall and manage to gouge a few of them, 2 of them dead. At this point, we'd expect the rest to flee, but they don't. And it soon becomes clear why. Several watchmen come sprinting into the courtyard, with double the number of bludgeon-wielding attackers not far behind. Even though we'd turned the tide of the initial combat, it's clear this isn't sustainable. The fleeing watchmen spot us and head in our direction. There's 5 of them, 1 patroller with a sword and buckler combo, and the other 4 wielding crossbows. The watchmen are nowhere near as armored as we are. Though in this case, it works to their benefit, being able to run being very important right now. The patroller quickly charges the enemies facing us, flanking them from behind. With additional help, we managed to down all the initial 6 attackers. Owl guards? This far from the castle? Goodness, is it that bad over there? The patroller regards the 2 much more heavily armored men in front of him, blood still spattering the front of their shields. Now's not the time for a chat, friend. Soud turns, regarding his 2 original companions, though narrows his focus on Manny. What you've done is foolish, but I must thank you regardless. Now this time, obey my orders, yes? Get going. The longer you delay, the harder it will be for you to escape, if the watchman's report is to be believed. Without another word, he raises his voice, addressing the newcomers. Form up, wall men, behind me, and the buckler. My name is Todd. Lovely to meet you, Todd. I can't believe this. So much violence. Yeah, we really need to... I understand. One moment. Just as the flurry of new attackers starts to engage with Captain Antos and his new squad, the princess casts her buffing magic upon Todd, illuminating him in a brief blue glow. There, some extra defense. We've named it, so now I'm attached. Now let us make haste. The horses are getting upset. Finding that agreeable enough, I nod, mounting up and taking the lead. As you spread through the bellows, signs of looting and destruction become increasingly visible. The unrest has been mounting for some time, incited via an unknown catalyst where tension has finally boiled over. The two of you are moving too quickly to be readily accosted. Most would-be waylayers lacking ranged weaponry to dismount you. Princess Gwenhilda, though dressed in a comparatively fancy-looking riding gown associated with her royal class, is a relatively unknown figure amongst the populace, unrecognizable by most down here. After all, she's only been princess for about a month now. You exit through one of the main trade gates, the guards there having abandoned their posts. Only recently a princess, so by marriage, or? Of course, you're not the only people fleeing town. Escapees of all types filter out alongside you, though you appear to be the only equestrians. The rest of them are on foot. Should we stop to help them? How, princess? She doesn't respond, looking back to a furrowed brow at the city they've just fled, the walls getting farther and farther away. I hate to say it, but I feel very much out of the loop here, princess. I suppose us Royal Guard types aren't, kept too privy to matters down below, are we? No, and that's a horrible shame. It came as a shock to us all, but no one more than me. You can't help but doubt that. Remembering the sight of Captain Soud getting smacked with the fresh swords and the poor dead blacksmith at the entrance of the shop. My own people. It breaks my heart. Perhaps I should have stayed, spoken with them, assuaged their concerns. Perhaps, not. They seem like a violent bunch. Talking is great, though the scales of diplomacy, they were a bit tipped in their favor there. Hard to talk things out when their point of leverage is do what I say or die. The princess harumphs, looking less than satisfied with that rationale. Or just upset with this whole situation in general. Do what I say or die? She quotes my words back to me. Is that not what we, royalty, demand on a daily basis? If we were truly worth our salt, we would come down from our ivory towers once in a while and meet our citizenry at their own level. I hold up the flats of my gloved palms defensively, not about to debate the various aspects of power whilst still trying to keep vigilant for threats alongside the country. Ultimately, there has to be something to do. This has to have something to do with my father taking the throne last month. But what specifically? Well, what's done is done, princess. Your safety is my top priority, my only priority now. The princess turns, swooping her braided ponytail from one shoulder to the other. Well, thank you, Guardsman Manny. I feel in very safe hands. She smiles faintly. I try to smile back, but it's not really coming across well with the helmet and all. I nod instead. Well, I do believe our quest is still on, right? Fighting the Bartis. The baristes. You said they're friendly enough with your family, so getting you somewhere safe with them seems like a good idea. It's incredible how much my ability to read, like sight read well, is just, or cold read well, is obliterated the moment it's a fantasy setting. Just between the names and the choice of like sentence structures and whatnot. Certainly, things could clear up between now and then too. Any port in a storm. Eventually, after, let's say, 15 minutes worth of travel at a galloping, mounted pace, you no longer see signs of other citizenry wandering about. So so we have I think we have an in-universe person who draws all of these backgrounds for the campaign, and they're like relatively hasty speed paintings backgrounds kind of things. But that's why they had that gag where they just, I can't find it. There's supposed to be a painting for this one, or fuck. And so they just like they just Googled a picture and put a filter over it. But clearly that's not how they're all made. Like they do actually draw most of them. So that was just a missing asset for them. And they're like, ah, damn it. Having been headed in the direction of the Bartistes, you've been, God damn it. You've been forced to follow a lot of the lesser maintained back roads. This is when you begin to hear humming. It oscillates in pitch every 10 seconds or so, with brief pauses for breath, almost like a song. Your mounts start to behave strangely, sniffing the air, slowing down and stomping their hooves against the shoddy stone path. That's not good. What? Horses are prey creatures. Their survival depends on their innate ability to read their environment for potential threats. Whatever's up ahead, they clearly perceive it as a threat. We're gonna keep committing anyway. I have a very specific approach to this, which is to not take in new information ever. Let's just get through it. These things are fast enough to get us out of Dodge during our escape. I suppose that's true. I'll try to calm them down. I'm sure we have some nice oat cakes in our saddlebags. In the meantime, I look around, trying to find the source of the noise. And to that end, it doesn't take you long to find it. The first things you see are glimmering metal horns poking out from beyond the hill. Helmets, with masks covering the faces of their wearers. 15 people are gathered in a clearing by what appears to be an old, abandoned fort. Their backs are turned to you. Soldiers. It's unclear. What is clear, however, is that through their humming, the air itself is starting to distort, like hot air above pavement. In the distance, smoke can be seen rising from Vulton by the sea, little blazes silhouetting the shadowy figures. They look out of place, like something that doesn't belong in the sober daylight. The princess, being a mystic class herself, should be able to perceive that this shimmering effect, in combination with the dull amber glow at the end of the group, is generally associated with portal creation. Okay, yeah, the fact that the Dungeon Master is explaining what the princess can see definitely tells me that it's a player. Because otherwise this wouldn't be knowledge for the character to hear, or it would be something that she says if the Dungeon Master was puppeteering the princess. However, something on this scale, with as many casters present all at once, is unheard of. Oh boy. You ready, Waz? Wazzy. They got someone named Wazzy. That's the spirit, dude. Like I was saying, the distortion is growing larger, swirling and cutting into the air around the base of the tower. That's how they're going to introduce the other characters. Wazzy and... Streaks of a reality that is not our own become visible through the tears in space. The kinetic energy of the swirling vortex is creating immense heat, singeing the masked hummers. And it looks like it's only going to get hotter here soon. Can I move him back? Move back, my guy, I mean. Away from the spell being casted? Yeah. Of course. There's a long pause. All of us waiting for Wazzy to describe his character's action. But he doesn't. Eventually the DM takes over. Okay, so as the one... Cathambrixu. As the one weak-willed summoner steps one toe out of line, the portal's barely contained entropic force spills forth. The ground rolls, soil ebbing and flowing like liquid beneath their feet. The resonance of time and space shattering like a thunderclap, echoing throughout the hills. Hundreds of years old stonework and carpentry begins to crumble. Portal energy destructive enough to rip through stone. Though the sun above remains unclouded, light itself is siphoned and bent by the dark magic. This lack of light creates a shadow over the valley and those that reside within it. You can feel the darkness upon your skin like a hot, scratchy shroud. The summoners needn't hum any longer, for the air itself hums, stealing their voices and playing it back to them, as if mocking their feeble attempts at handling forces that which they cannot fathom understanding. Those of weak constitution quickly succumb to the discombobulating inferno. We've got harumph and discombobulating. Wow, this is a McSkinny production. And through the portal emerges... Oi. Wait, is in the back? Is there an orc in the back? No, it's the helmets. Okay. One of the cultists, not completely discombobulated, calls out from amidst the embers. The runt orc messed it up for us. The spell's in shambles. That ugly thing's not our lord. Purge it. Purge the orc too. Such a warm welcome to this world. Literally, it's rather hot, even for someone such as you. Right then. And also abs. Hot Thulu. As smoke billows past his ankles, the eldritch entity strides forth from the source of his summoning. In the distance, he spies two humanoid figures by their mounts. Curious onlookers, no doubt, but they will have to wait until the scrappy remnants of Kasav's welcoming party are dealt with. The idea that even the creator of the character can't pronounce the name. I mean, that's supposed to be the trick, right? That's supposed to be the gimmick with, like, Nyarlathotep and Cthulhu or whatever the fuck, is they're supposed to be unpronounceable by humans anyway. So, I'm technically correct when I'm wrong. There are currently 6 of the summoners still standing, plus the aforementioned runty orc, though they don't seem too friendly with him. Speaking of the orc, noting his role in all this, he can intuit that the mana reserves of the newly hostile hooded figures are rather low after the ritual. Which perhaps explains why the one nearest to him promptly pulls a knife and charges at him, instead of casting a spell. Dagbat, there we go. Fuck. I need to turn this down a little bit. Fuck indeed. The strike hits critically, leaving the orc staggered. The other 5 move to attack the tentacled fellow, 2 reaching their target. Both hit with daggers, managing to slice the big guy with a flank advantage. Wounds of the flesh, but not the spirit. Fear is not felt by Kathatra. He retaliates, a burst of psionic energy emitting from his mind and blasting all those within a 12-foot radius, frying at their brains. Memories and motor functions melting like wettened cotton candy. No. That spell isn't unlocked until 4 more levels. Remember, when we went through the combat trial run for each of you, I showed you which options you had with your starter skill sets. Uh-oh, really? Uh-huh. Okay, one sec. Within this realm, Kathatra finds his feats of mental strength, with which he ordinarily could wield effortlessly, no longer come to him with such ease. Concerning, but only a minor setback, surely. After even a fraction of his usual power is enough to handle low life such as these. He turns to one of his attackers, directing a single, focused blast of psionic force at him. It misses. Things are going well. Good old dice rolls deflating any proud declarations you make about what you're up to. Quite a bit of time passes as the two fight the rest of the masked attackers, mostly unsuccessfully. The small orc managed to get a hold of his own dagger and take out the guy who ambushed him, but the remaining four are still really laying into them. The originally intimidating, eldritch-looking fellow from the portal is now thoroughly battered. He is nearly down, no longer carrying himself with the same level of self-aggrandizement which he was flaunting something fierce earlier. You know, I feel kind of bad for them. I mean, I can sympathize with those also not having the best of days. Today. Even if they're not exactly human. What are you, racist? Not human's pretty common, I would imagine. Mayhap we should lend them some aid. Looking across the hill towards the green and blue fellow getting their rumps kicked, it does feel a little wrong just to stand here and watch. If you insist, princess, it's my job after all. She smiles graciously, feeding her last oatcake to Butterscotch, her horse, before striding onto the battlefield with her guard in tow. Not long after, I'm buffed by a blue glow of armored fortitude from the princess's magic. Emboldened and empowered, I rush into the mess of dagger-wielding cultist folk. Shield raised, I bash as many as I can, trying to draw their attention onto me, away from the squishier folk. With their backs turned, the orc manages to backstab two of them, while I finish off one that was targeting the blue guy. So when there's narration that doesn't have a description, I imagine that's like shorthand. It's like summarizing essentially, so we can get on with it, because D&D can take a very long time in real time. With one remaining, it's the princess of all people who finishes the job. A bolt of white magic shot from her fingertips, zapping him dead on the ground. And with that, everything goes completely still. The destabilized portal vanishes behind the wounded, tentacled entity. Silence fills the valley, and our heroes are left standing amongst one another. It's unfamiliar and strange company, a million questions on their minds, but alas, it will have to wait for another time. Ah, boo. Megan lets out a little laugh. Hey, it's almost closing time here. Gotta be considerate for the librarians. You're playing this at a library? What happened to quiet hours? Can you play D&D in a library? I've never considered that. I just imagine it as a place where you don't speak. I just wanted to say, I think you guys did pretty good. It can be difficult getting into a brand new character, especially with what is essentially a pickup group. Cause this is a character I've had for like over a decade now. He's not new. Still not even gonna try to pronounce that. We're on the same page here. Not me recycling the same character over and over again because the fucking campaigns keep ending every single time. I just thought it'd be a cool thing for a group back at Marty's house to have like this what are they called? Shit. I'm literally playing Planescape right now. Why can't I think of what the demons are called? The word's gone. It'll come back later, so it's not even worth correcting me, but I lost it for the moment. But I had a demon man dude, and the whole premise was that he was a thief that stole. It's like that gambit where it's that constant thing that happens in every RPG you play, where you're supposed to carry a package from this person to that person, and you're not supposed to open it, and he did, and so it was like a magic relic that transformed him into a sorcerer against his will. So he behaves like a thief and approaches his newfound magic as a thief. And I'm using this, I don't know if this is entirely accurate interpretations of the lore, but it felt good enough that I rule of cooled it anyway. Where I was just like, sorcerers are intuitive spellcasters, right? They're like emotional, charismatic spellcasters, as opposed to a wizard that carefully studies it and all that. That's why you have wild magic and stuff, because they're wacky, messy, fucked up train wreck spellcasters by comparison. So it's just somebody that's been turned into a sorcerer by a spell, essentially manifesting spells emotionally on a whim without necessarily knowing what he's doing. And that, which also makes it fun to just trigger wild magic here and there, because that also fits that concept and so on. But the quirk is that every spell he learns, almost all of them are just useful for thieves and not for spellcasters. I could have made this harder on myself by trying to dual class, but I cannot be asked to try to learn dual classing when every campaign I ever do ends before it gets that far anyway. So they're just a sorcerer that thinks they're a thief, essentially. But it's like every spell they get is like, there's mirror image or whatever to make them harder to hit. Magic hand's always a fun trick for obvious reasons. Knock, which is the spell that lets you open things with spell casting. But also D&D 5, I think, has meta magic for sorcerers, and so I'd give him the first meta magic I get is the one that makes it so you can cast spells silently, and then the one that makes it so you can cast spells without speaking or doing the verbal and somatic components, the hand gestures and the voice, which those two feed into his paranoia, where he is terrified, like suitable for a thief character and whatnot. He specifically is afraid of being trapped. He doesn't want to go into any space that only has one exit that can be locked behind him, and he doesn't want to be shackled or bound or imprisoned in any context, which is all fitting because this campaign that I made him for started out with them being imprisoned, and so he was actively trying to escape that at all cost. And there's like goofy moments where like they're going into like a trap door, and everyone else just goes in, but he specifically needs to dismantle the trap door and remove it from the hinges before he's willing to go in the hole. Like, he needs to be secure in the idea that the door is gone before he's willing to do anything there. And nonsense like that. And like, and also like, if you can use meta magic to cast knock with those two modifiers I said, that means that if you are bound and gagged, you should be able to cast knock to unbind yourself to escape basically anything. But it will be silent, because normally knock practically sounds like a gunshot. And it will be done, and yeah, you can do it without using the gestures or voice. That means even if you're bound and gagged, you can still cast it anyway. So that's like incredibly useful and incredibly specific context, and incredibly not useful stuff to learn when you fight a minotaur. So it's funny because I always wanted to play, before that I loved playing a druid, and I played a druid for 2 different campaigns, and they are such a Batman utility belt of infinite tricks that will get you out of any problem. So having a character that only has very specific tools instead of a wide range of tools was interesting to play. But that campaign ended early because of a shitty player ruining it for everyone. And then I recycled that character to the one I did for YouTube, where I was playing as Thunder in the Morning, which was just the same character again, but this time they were Tabaxi. And if anything, curiosity kills the cat only further reinforces the idea of having like somebody who fucked up and opened a package they weren't supposed to and did this thing, with the added trait that as a Tabaxi he gets hyperfixations on a periodic basis, and so now he keeps repeating the same behavior that caused him to previously get this problem started in the first place, while still picking the same spells and so on. That character was fun. That was the part of all of the characters that sound like this, that have I don't know what the fuck voice I've been slowly working. That wasn't even a good moment of it, but that I've been developing over the course of a series of whatevers. I don't know. You do enough Let's Plays, you slowly add more voices to your set and all that. Anyway, I just wanted to gush about D&D a bit, because we're doing D&D a little bit here, and I don't get to do that much. I'm definitely bringing that character back next campaign to finally try to give him time to shine, because we got some really good highlights. Like look up the highlights on this channel, the Crone Saga, and then there's another one I forgot, but Thunder in the Morning got to get up to some shit because of his bullshit, but it's still too short-lived of a campaign, so I'm definitely just going to use him again, just to try to, like, get him through a story for once. One day. Still not even going to pronounce that. Going to try to pronounce that. K-Tham-Brazoo. It's not even that hard. Inky the Squid Man. Megan laughs again. No. Apologies that this sesh is a little strange. The ARtP framework isn't really oriented for that dungeon crawly style you see in other TTRPGs. Oh, no, I really liked it. You guys have really neat characters. I'm really glad we got to save Captain Antos. He was my favorite. I hope I get to see more of him. Oh, noted. I smile, nodding in agreement as I tuck away my character sheet into my pack. My character is not very interesting. Yeah, this was pretty cool. Never done anything tabletop-y before, so I hope I was okay. Fuck. Wait, no, oh wait, I'm Danny. Who spent so little time as the human characters that I forgot who Danny was. So this is a noticeable thing everywhere, but I don't have a very good memory for names. But I do remember colors a lot of the time. So like I instantly clock like, oh, this voice is the guy that's like orangey yellow. But you give me gray text Danny, and I for a second there thought that it was Captain Anto speaking. I'm like, oh fuck, he was a person at this table too. I went and gave Duke his voice after he left because I was like, I guess that was the Dungeon Master all along, right? But no, I'm Danny. Yeah, this was pretty cool. Never done anything tabletop-y before, so I hope I was okay. I was wondering why the Dungeon Master was saying that. Hey, you kicked butt out there too, Guardsman Manny. I never would have guessed it was your first time. I do have a few pointers though that I'll get to in a sec. The kid beside me, Wazzy, I think his name is already standing up to leave. He's been quiet most of the game, skimming the rulebook and sketching things in the back of his character sheet. Heading off already? Wazzy blinks, staring at the floor for a second before responding. Oh, yeah. Dad's picking me up soon. As he speaks, I notice his gaze never meets anyone else's. Gotcha. Sorry Dagbed didn't get much playtime. You gonna be here next week? Wazzy nods, giving an indirect thumbs up. Uh-huh. He shuffles out. Well, alrighty then. I guess we'll call it. I do have some homework for everyone, though, and I'll make sure to email it to Wazzy when I get home. Homework? Yeah, you guys are doing good, but I want you to think a little bit more about your characters' backstories. A quick write-up of how they got to be where they are today. Motivations, traumas, harrowing experiences that molded them into what they are, who they are. You know, truly give them a voice to stand out, something unique. This should be super easy for you, Tucker. Oh, hell yeah! I have like a whole binder full of stuff for my guy. Yep, you, mentioned that. Several times now. So, Megan and Daniel, right? Yeah, I just go by Danny, though. Cool, so this one will be mainly for you, on account of your character basically being one of the starter templates. I slink into my seat, still feeling guilty for not having come with an original character in mind like everyone else. Fortunately, Duke had brought some printout templates in case something like that happened. The party needed a kinda tanky character, so I chose the basic, fully armored warrior dude. Duke stands, putting away his special Dungeon Master's View blocker thing and sliding a few sheets of paper our way across the table. Grabbing one and skimming it, the page lists a bunch of background details to consider for character writing in bullet point format. I guess I have to address each of these. That'll take some time, but it's not like I'm pressed for that lately. I give Duke a nod and... Alright guys, it's about time I headed out myself. Definitely excited for the stuff I've got in mind for next time. Catch you later, and send me an email if you have any questions or ideas. Danny and Manny. Duke and Dungeon Master. I'm just thinking about useful tools for this kind of approach to storytelling. I'm like, oh, if you named every character's D&D character a name that had the same starting letter as their person in real life, that'd be like a great way to like try to keep them all straight. Duke pushes his character. All right, douche. I can't get the sentence out of early. Duke pushes his chair in and promptly disappears around the bookcase, heading towards the stairwell. Oh, time to buzz off then. See ya, dudes. Gotta get in my uniform for my shift at 4. You guys had a D&D thing scheduled at noon, and then had work at 4. I guess 3 hours is not that far off. I've never tried to cut it that tight. Have fun at work. Bye, everyone. Megan quickly collects her things, trying to catch up with him. Tucker follows suit. This must be how my high school teachers felt when the bell rang. I had a few questions about my character sheet, though I guess it would probably be better said in an email rather than making everyone stay late. Duke had booked the meeting space on the top floor of the library from 12 to 3:30 p.m. every Wednesday. It's already 3:28 according to my phone. Oh, so then they definitely had to stop there. Okay. Okay, so it's a special space in the library. Top floor of the library. I guess I'm not used to cities. Like, my library didn't have floors where I grew up. The time slot was the only one he could get a hold, that he could get that didn't conflict with any of our schedules. Well, their schedules. Mine's wide open. With a little grunt, I brace myself on the edge of the seat and push my body up. I shift my hips over and settle my butt back into the wheelchair. And it is a wheelchair. I think this is the first time it's actually been mentioned. There was just mentions to the idea of struggling to, like, move a little bit and having, like, wake-up feelings. Anyone who has experience would have instant familiarity with whatever the warm bottle of water is for. But I just was like, this sounds like something, but I don't know what it's shorthand for. An easy enough transfer. Nowadays, I only have trouble with the swivelly office chairs. Sliding my pack over the backrest and clasping on the safety strap over my midsection, I push my way off towards the elevator. The library is at least 80 years old, but recent renovations have made it a heck of a lot more maneuverable. In theory, at least. The place was packed when we got here, all the tourists and townsfolk checking out the latest renovations. It wasn't so much the crowds were major obstacles or anything, more so the fact that they parted like the Red Sea whenever I got a little bit close. I appreciate the courtesy, though there's something about the way everyone just has to stop what they're doing and stare at me until I've passed that makes me feel, well, not great. Still, this place is pretty dope. The fancy black brick floors and sunset gradient carpets in the reading areas. Plus, there's even a family video game and movie rental area, all made up to look like one of those retro Blockbuster stores, complete with popcorn. I'm gonna actually get a library card and check it out sometime. Takes me about 4 times as long to get outside as it does everyone else, so they're all long gone by the time I'm on the sidewalk. Well, except for Wazzy, who is standing by the curb staring at his cell phone. He looks pretty young, so I'm not surprised he doesn't have a car of his own like Tucker and Duke. Megan rides her bike. I'm 90% sure he notices me, but he doesn't look in my direction. I lean back in my seat, tapping at the edge of my wheels. No sign of Dad, yet. So, Wazzy, right? The reaction to me greeting him is almost like a wince, his shoulders visibly tensing. He turns his shoulders, facing away from me even more. Oh, come on. Really, dude? My heart starts to sink. That same horrible self-conscious feeling I get going out in public is now hitting me full stride. The sooner I get back home to my room, the better. Yeah. Okay, at least he's not ignoring us. He's just very anxious or something. I thought he was literally just gonna ghost us, like, to our faces when we were just playing D&D. Or whatever in-universe actual tabletop RPG is being played, you know. He responds, there is someone who will criticize me for treating D&D as analogous to the concept of tabletop role-playing games. Hey, I've played, one session of, not Cyberpunk, what's it called? Shadowrunner, and like a few sessions of Vampire the Masquerade. You'll be shocked to hear that I was the werewolf light faction. I did enjoy the flaw system where you take more flaws in order to get more perks with like a currency. Like you inflict a negative to then buy a positive, and I went straight for the ones that make it so that I just straight up could not pass the Masquerade, so I had to just deal with that. That was fun. I don't remember anything about how the actual tabletop system works, but that's like the least important part of any tabletop thing, I feel like, is the actual nitty-gritty of how you play it. it's just make-believe. It's just Dungeon Master, like, hey, you roll this one now. Okay. He responds a good 10 seconds after I ask the question, still not bothering to look at me. Phone interface stuff is back. Am I gonna pick one? Oop, am I? I can. Just the controls are weird for the controller. I can definitely highlight them. And then press... Okay, Alexi, who's that? Hey, Dan the man. Let's see. Oh, no. Alexi is just texting me and I'm not responding. That's not a good sign for a conversation. Hey, Dan the man. Can't believe it's been a year since we last talked. I still use the board you helped me make. It's carved up to crap from grinding. Replaced the grip yesterday. Check it. Message me when you get this. Or maybe I'm not ghosting them. That seems like one conversation. I just see a feed of only one person and no one responds, and I'm thinking, oh, this is a person I'm intentionally ignoring. I'm chasing them. I don't think I can message them when I get this. Nope, I can look at the picture though. There's a whole ass interface in here. Wait. No, yeah, I am purple. I see spaghetti's ready in 20 minutes when you get home, and I'm thinking like, I'm so used to like that being a parental thing to say, but it's because we're homebound. Spaghetti should be ready in 20 minutes when you get home. We have leftovers in the freezer. You didn't need to cook. It's already almost done. Did everything go okay? Yeah. Good. Agnes and Fine called. We'll talk about it later. Driving now. Set your alarm for your group play tomorrow. Okay. Sup? I'm also stuck waiting here. Didn't mean to bother you. Huh? Oh. It's okay. Just talking to online people. He holds up his phone, actually turning to look at me for a moment. Well, my lower half. Or lack thereof. Yeah, they finally got Wi-Fi in the library. Kinda nuts it took this long. And again with the silence. Maybe I should just pull out my phone too? Pretend I'm texting? Did I open my phone on accident? Was that not related to what was happening? Did I accidentally like joystick over? Maybe I did. I was wondering why the phone came up at that moment. Music player? Champagne. I feel like this could get me in trouble potentially. Let's find out the hard way. Nope. Gallery? Sketch 1? Okay. Maybe I should just pull out my phone too, pretend I'm texting. It's what I used to do at parties when I didn't really want to talk to anyone, and also wanted to avoid looking like a skeeve. Wow! I'm under attack. Yeah. Wasn't the whole point of me joining this tabletop group to get out in the world and talk to people again? I'm way out of my element. My social skills are rusty as heck. These forced conversational situations don't come naturally to me like they used to. It's not like the skate park where you can wave at somebody and start shooting the crap about where they got in their deck, or where they got their deck and what sort of tricks they can do. We spent the last few hours pretending to be someone else without ever actually getting to know each other. That you just gotta nerd out about your characters, or lack thereof. Let's brainstorm. Let's go. It's weird. Maybe I should have shaved? Sorry. He shifts his weight from one Converse sneaker to the other, sliding his phone into his pocket. I'm not good with speech. Oh, no worries, man. I lie, having worried plenty. ESL? English second language? Surprisingly, he smirks. What makes you think that? Your complexion. We live in Arizona, a third of the population's like that. Nah, He scratches his jaw. I don't have that excuse. Just, something else. He swirls his hands, gesticulating as if trying to speak with them. All the while, he's completely avoiding eye contact. Gotcha. I don't really, but I'm not gonna pry on you or nothing, man. There's not much to say, but, what's up with, He gestures towards me, specifically the absence of both my legs. Oh. That's what you meant by the lack thereof. I was guessing spinal injury, not literally the legs are gone. Oh, the double amputee thing. It's hard not to notice it. You're telling me, buddy. That would attract a few more looks than just being in a wheelchair. Glad I'm not the shortest one around for once. Whoa. That's... wow, Wazzy. Alright. You just topped Raven for most awkward jokes to introduce yourself with. Freaking otter blowjob thing. Yeah. Admittedly, I'm not really at the point where I really talk casually about my situation, so I'm probably looking very awkward right now. I changed the subject. I think Tucker was shorter than you. He's pretty stout. Yeah, that's true. Surprised he didn't play, what are they called? Dwarves? Isn't playing as someone who isn't like you the point? He shrugs. Wazzy's probably wondering why this handicapped idiot in front of him keeps asking him questions right after he said he sucks at talking. Still, I can't exactly go back to the awkward silence, at least willingly. Oh yeah, almost forgot. There's a whole thing about, playing who you are like or are not like and so on in these games. It's like for example, when you are somebody who is wheelchair bound, there was a push for the idea of representation in the universe, of like being able to play a disabled character and so on. And it's like this conflict of like, do you want escapism, or do you want to actually feel represented and be included in the narrative and see yourself in your character? And also, specifically, the idea that you can have escapism while also being represented, like because it's people who are able-bodied will see being disabled as just something to wish you weren't, and like that's a real rough way to lead your life if you are living as a disabled person. Like, and this is a delicate conversation to have, and but like it on some level, yeah, you might want to be like, I want to be a cool badass druid who was also in a wheelchair, because that's cool, and like fully embrace that. like on a way similar to like also like wanting to have like your gender identity or sexuality expressed in D&D. Although D&D also has this whole element where like it's a chance for people to test the waters in many cases, and they get to have a character that expresses a part of themselves that they're afraid to express in real life, and they might not even be open about it with the table of people, but like there's the element of like men playing female characters, for example, in various RPGs, both video game and not, where some of them jokingly use that thing like, if I'm gonna play this one character for 500 hours, it might as well be something I like looking at. And speaking as somebody who had the same mentality, but because I was gay, and that's why I was playing as dudes, sure, but also there's the element of people wanting to play as a woman for other reasons, because they potentially see themselves as one, or are unsure themselves on some level, but you know, it's just kind of appeals to them for some reason that they haven't really hashed out yet. They're not thinking about it that much, but maybe it's not just because they find women attractive, although also maybe both. Sometimes that egg takes a while to crack, and people are doing stuff for other reasons, and there's a lot of exploring that happens in D&D. I think that's why more recent editions are pushing further and further in that direction, and how you see like you see non-binary characters, for example, included in official settings, like the actual, like they're like, because obviously like the rule book's just a rule book and you kind of can just do whatever you want, but there's noteworthy things about like how to set up the actual setting itself, and like if you are writing modules, now it's set in concrete locations and with lore that is also carried over from other modules and so on, and it's like you start establishing like characters on the LGBT grouping like that. That was weird phrasing. Like when you start including LGBTQ plus characters in that, you're making a statement about the setting itself, and that is itself a reflection of the kind of player base that these games appeal to, which has shifted over time. Not even because the people themselves have necessarily changed, but because the people are potentially discovering more about themselves the more we learn about ourselves, just as people in general. But also, yeah, maybe a little bit of furry fandom stuff going on, like how some people in the furry fandom are, or the community, like a lot of furries are drawn into it just because they like the character designs themselves, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some element that are brought in specifically because of how queer the environment is, and that is obviously appealing in its own way, and so you can kind of potentially gain the appeal of everything else around it just by wanting to be immersed in the community that comes with it. And so seeing all the ways that tabletop enables queer fantasy and so on can certainly lead to an increase in popularity with queer people, and that's all neat. But also the I had a pin. I'll put a pin in something mentally, and I don't know if I can go back to it. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-bow. Oh yeah, I also saw the on this kind of note, like what I've been enjoying is I've been watching Vox Machina. I have never seen a single episode of Critical Role. I don't watch any tabletop shows because they're fucking long. Like, holy shit, like I don't have time for Let's Plays anymore. I barely ever did. I can't imagine having time to watch these like huge multi-hour things all the time, but I guess if I specifically had like a work schedule environment where I was like going back into like podcasts all the time, then maybe that would be a time to be into that stuff, but they passed me by then. But Vox Machina, it's extremely noticeable, this shift, because there are so many gay characters and so many bisexual characters, and there's some playing with gender here and there, and there's even like I saw in the second season there was a combat wheelchair. It's like, here we go. That's just, it's the point where I was listening to a Rowan Ellis video, I think, about specifically this topic. She, or is it she or they? I think it's she, has a video about specifically D&D and queerness and so on that's worth watching, that fed into this. And during my walks, I then just constantly daydreamed about a setting and characters to specifically go with, about characters kind of going along this element. And I did definitely have even a through line dealing with potentially the question of like, yeah, who, like, arguing for and against the idea of having a combat wheelchair on your character. Not the idea of it existing as narrative, but like having a character arc built around the idea of choosing to or not to have that kind of thing on your character, and like how you process that and how you process loss and things like that. It's writing stories is fun. Committing to finishing any of them ever is impossible. I don't know how anyone does that. But anyway. I can have tangents without Stephanie. It's perfectly possible. Oh, yeah. Almost forgot. Duke gave me these homework sheets to complete before the next session. They're supposed to help us flesh out our characters, make them a bit more three-dimensional. Traumas, backstories, spicy love affairs, that kind of thing. I reach into my pack, wheeling my way over a little closer to show him the handout. Spicy love affairs? He squints at the sheet. I may have made that one up. Yeah, I don't see Dag getting, laid. Was doing my thing, the character sheet with Duke. Had to assign skill points. I got a 2 in strength. That is improbable. Isn't 10 average? Like average human being strength? So orcs are obviously tend to be higher on average because they're coded to be strong dudes. But 2 is so much below 10 that it sounds difficult to survive as a person. So he came out real wimpy-like. That shit doesn't, you know, bode well in orc culture. I can't help but snicker a bit. The dude seems super shy, but then says stuff like that. Oh, like he's too wimpy to get laid by orcs. Just not gonna get snoo obliterated. I want that twink destroyed. He's also speaking more. See, this is the trick. You gotta talk about the game. I was on the right path. If you talk about the game, then you can get some conversation. You can bond there, and then you can work from there when you're more familiar with each other, because you didn't talk all day. Still with the awkward pauses every now and then, but not nearly as bad. I liked his catchphrase. My one line of dialogue? Fuck. Couldn't get much else out with Tucker's half-naked tentacle monster chewing all the scenery. What do you call his race again? An elder flayer? He nods. With a 6-pack and nipples. It's fine. This is all. I see no problems here. He showed me some of the commissioned art he. Yep, there it goes. How many thousands of dollars has he spent on commissions for this character? And also, is there an After Dark section of the binder? Tentacles, you say? He showed me some of the commissioned art that he had, and this thing is the binder. When everyone was getting their character sheets checked over by Duke, Tucker had this ginormous binder with his character's name on it. Apparently he'd been writing stories about him for over a decade. However, his character's race wasn't one of the selectable ones for players. It was an enemy type only. Duke wasn't going to allow it at first, though we all got the impression Tucker probably would just straight up leave if he couldn't play as a squid dude. So, Duke relented. It was apparent he was steamed about it. Ooh. Homebrew veteran player versus dungeon master friction. I have seen multiple instances of this. God, there was one character that we're getting sidetracked here talking about D&D all the time. It's fine. This is a Let's Try. I'm not supposed to finish the game or anything. In fact, it's not out all the way. This is just the existing update. You can play the rest on your own. It's fine. You've got the power. Link in the description. Go check it out. It's free. Do it. Maybe check the age rating. I think this game just has adult themes, but doesn't have adult content. But I would double check. There was this one guy that fucking hacked the rulebook so hard that he had a whole fucking second character essentially. He managed to get that out of this whole mess, and it was just exhausting how just over, like he was I don't know if this guy's gonna be that bad, but the friction speaks to it a little bit. But like this guy just was going way too far, trying to have such an absurd character, and everyone else just has like a regular dude. Like my level of wacky character in the same campaign was that my druid was from an extended section of the rule book where you can be like a spell like a wild shape druid or something, which is one that, like, instead of just trying to transform into monsters from the monster manual, you transform into, like, you have like designated forms. So I had to keep a separate character sheet for each of my forms so I could keep track of their stats, because they actually did like level up like separate characters and so on, and they were more concrete, consistent forms, like a travel form and so on, as opposed to being like, I am a bear from page 52 now, and so on. I had a different approach to that. Could you tell there was a few subtle hints all along I was a furry? Who could you guess where they were? We'll never find them. But in the same campaign, this guy had like magic weapons and like a second character that he somehow created or something, and like just a bunch of nonsense. And our dungeon master eventually got just kind of sick of it and had him be the dungeon master for a campaign. And then his campaign wasn't fun. Like, it was bad. Like, there was a part where he made us fight a mimic that had 50 tentacles. They're all wielding weapons, and so like a single turn of combat was taking a half an hour to resolve because of how fucking complicated he was making it, just diving to the rules and being exhausting. And it's like, this isn't a computer, man. Like, it takes so long to do all this if you aren't doing it in person. And it's like, there's people that get way too much into the nitty-gritty sometimes. So hopefully he's not like that person, and he's more like just somebody that's really attached to their OC. And so it's just like, just let me have homebrew, like, wacky character, and just that, like, please. Without going too far into it. But what did I... The main thing is to not let your character be, like, incredibly overpowered. Because there's people who will, like, try to, like, run over the dungeon master and get a bunch of rule-breaking shit onto their character just to kind of power fantasy it and swag around. And it's like, I feel like D&D feels best, and oftentimes when it's just kind of like a ragtag group of underdogs that don't really have massive, standout, powerful characters, and you're just kind of reacting to stuff. So trying to be like the big dick dude of the party kind of just makes it... I feel like I don't know how you don't get self-aware on some level and be like, everyone's just like, man, everyone thinks I'm so cool. Like, then there's no universe where that happens. So instead it's just like, man, I'm sure being exhausting to everyone, and just kind of like trying to show off in our make-believe game kind of pointlessly. But I get being attached to your character and just wanting to use them. So, you know, depends on where this person lands on that realm. So Duke relented, and it was apparent he was steamed about it. Yeah, I saw. He looked kind of cool, like something from the cover of an old metal album. The lack of armor or clothing in general wasn't doing him any favors during that first fight, though. Wazzy cants his head some in my direction before looking away again. Cants again. That's the third part of the bingo. We got harumph, cant, and discombobulate. Yeah. Thank goodness for you, big metal man. Okay, yeah, that was like, didn't say your, right? He puts on a bit of a voice, making half-hearted finger guns. Tankin' and spankin'. He put his sexuality on his character sheet, too. He shifts the topic back to Tucker and his character. Said he liked chicks and guys. Huh. I exhale, leaning back in my wheelchair. I slip down a bit so that the back of my head lies against the top of the backrest. I'm just gonna call it right now. Tucker's a furry. I'm not sure how open I should be around here. Mesa Verde is pretty hippy-dippy, so it ain't like I gotta worry too much about gay bashing stuff. It's more so that I don't know how confident I am about talking about that kind of sexual labeling. After everything that's happened, I can barely look at myself in the mirror. I couldn't feel any less sexy if I tried. Crap. Now I'm the one creating the awkward pauses. Noting my silence, Wazzy clears his throat and speaks up again. Which, makes sense. Because, like, in the flyer thing, the advertisement for the tabletop group, it mentioned it was LGBT friendly. Duke even put a big rainbow on it. Yeah. Sorry, still kind of new to this whole role-playing thing. My dad has been wanting me to get out of the house for a bit. He saw that flyer, and it was either this or ceramics. Fuck ceramics, you made the good choice. I snark. What about you? Why are you here? Wazzy rolls his phone in the palm of his hands as he ponders the question. Or at least while he tries to pick out the right words to use to respond to me. A long story, but sort of same as you. Dad pushed me into it. I'm surprised people still play tabletop like this. He means like not online? He nods in the direction of the library. Yep. I'm immersed, apparently. You can do it all online now. Maybe it's just like an old person thing. If I remember right, Duke's 27. Yeah, like I said. Old person thing. Ow. Call the 27-year-old a boomer, why don't you? Duke the Grey Muzzle. Ouch. My phone goes off in my pocket. It's a text from Dad. I'll be there to pick you up in just a sec. Okay. Meanwhile, one of the passing vehicles slows to a stop down the block and abruptly pulls over towards the edge of the sidewalk. It looks like a souped-up golf cart. Like one of those off-roading types you take up to the mountains. I hear they roll over all the time and squish people. Oh, that's my dad. Wazzy turns, limply gesturing towards it. I can't really see his dad too well due to the angle I'm at, but he seems like a pretty huge dude. He's got his hoodie up and has some kind of skull print COVID mask on, or something. Well, at least he's wearing it. I was worried there's gonna be a skull print on the car, and like, oh no, Punisher Skull's a bad start. Definitely Walmart at midnight vibes. Quite a contrast with Wazzy. Sick ride. Alright, Guardsman Manny. I perk a brow at him. Being called by my character's name makes me feel a tinge of embarrassment. Wazzy reaches into my pocket, withdrawing his cell phone and handing it down to me. Put in your number. What? Duke keeps sending group emails, but they're going to my thing. Another pause. My, spam folder, yeah. I let out a sharp puff of air, tapping at the contacts screen and putting in my information. I gave him back his phone, Wazzy grunting and adjusting his oversized sleeves. Wazzy! You gonna get in or what? Move your fucking ass! His dad's bassy voice seems to rumble the concrete, cutting through the relative quiet. A few peds a block away turn their heads to gawk. I can't accept peds. Wazzy thins his lip. I've never heard anyone say peds before. Now everyone in the comments are gonna be like, everyone says that all the time. I love peds. It's my favorite word. Wazzy thins his lips, appearing mortified as he pushes down the brim of his cap. I quickly hand him back his phone. It's in there, under the name Manny. He does a sort of half nod, stuffing. Oh, there's the car. Stuffing his hands into his pockets and speed walking his way back to the fancy golf cart. Oh wait, no, it's a fancy golf cart. Right, that's not the car. I forgot. Is it like a golf cart, or is it like a dune buggy kind of thing? I wonder, or a Jeep? Kind of gives you the vibe. When you work at a skate park, as long as I did, you see plenty of high school kids come around with some pretty messed up domestic situations. Bruises, cuts, heck, even burns that can't really be attributed to a couple hours trying to do kickflips off the fun boxes. Kids would sneak off to the park with barely a couple dollars in their pockets and their cheapo big box store
store boards to try and escape things, at least temporarily. Every once in a while, the parent or step-parent would usually drive on by and find them. Then things got nasty. They'd threaten us at the board shop with all sorts of legal action, or if they were the rougher sort, more physical retribution. Ultimately, though, whatever they yelled at us would just pale in comparison to what the kid would get at home. Most of the time, we'd never see them again. Looking at Wazzy now, the way his dad is acting, it's at least a little familiar. Part of me wants to interject, to say something, maybe at least try to take the edge off whatever's going on. Yet I'm keenly aware of what I look like these days, and as the aches from the morning tingle around my hips, I'd much rather just go home. Rough note to end on too, but I'm actually getting like worn out from talking for almost 2 hours straight. I need to take a break and drinks and dinner and so on. So we're gonna stop here. This is off to a good start. I'm just teasing about the discombobulate and can't and so on. It's what happens when you read anybody's writing style. It's like, I remember I used to read the Jedi Apprentice, like children's Star Wars series when I was a kid, and boy, oh boy, did I hear the words grin. Was it grin? Definitely deafening. Lots of deafening, and I'm pretty sure either grinning or beaming. Like there's a lot of specific expressions and words that I would hear constantly from that specific writer and then from nobody else. It's just kind of a quirk that happens, is somebody will use a word that you're not used to hearing, like can't as a verb, and suddenly it really stands out to you that they use it. It's not actually a criticism or anything. But anyway, I'm gonna take a break here. This has been our preview of this. I kind of feel bad. A lot of these stories, like, I want to look at more, like Glory Hounds also. I'm like, I want to see where this all goes, but I'm like, I don't want to play them in my free time because that'd be spoiling the whole thing for myself if I ever do want to come back and do a series for it. But I also don't want to do a series for these games until they're done, because I don't like doing episodic playthroughs of partly finished things for years and then trying to remember what happened last time each time. But also, there's also the part where Stephanie and I are throttled by our availability and schedules lining up and so on. So like, we've got our plate plenty full just going through Adastra and Echo, and that taking as long as it does. And then after that, we'll probably do Arches, since that's apparently going to be done. So there's more than enough finished stuff to do in the meantime before I even have the possibility of considering the idea of cycling through the other games as they update potentially. So it's nice to get the finished version, because some of these things get chunks of them rewritten. There's like entire chunks that I praise about Adastra that weren't in the first version of those updates, and like stuff gets revised. So not my approach. So that's why I'm doing previews of these things. But I also just I like cycling through them. Like, given my specific position with this channel lately, I do like cycling through this particular subset of this like kind of community as games that keep getting made, and just kind of giving them a little spotlight for a moment and giving people a chance to check them out. So go ahead and do so. I'll see you next time.